If you've spent any amount of time in the anime sphere, or really any nerdy sphere, I guess, then you're definitely familiar with headcanons, right? Pretty much everyone's got one. They're usually pretty simple and harmless, something like, oh, I think Deku does this, and that's my headcanon. And like I said, usually they're pretty harmless until they aren't. As the title suggests, My Hero Academia is no stranger to these various types of headcanons, and not in a good way, which is exactly what I'm going to be talking about in this video. The thing that prompted this video was a post over on Twitter about the most recent My Hero episode. The user, who shall remain nameless because I just don't want to drive any kind of attention to this account, be it negative or positive, the whole point was that they posted a screenshot from the preview for the next episode of My Hero where you can see Mina's pink skin start to fade away and show her, I guess, natural skin color underneath. And the post was captioned, "I wish I could say I was surprised, but ... And then that's where it ended, kind of insinuating that they're upset that Mina is Asian, ? Don't worry, I was confused too, and it doesn't really make sense. But before I continue, something I want to point out is that I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to use this video to attack anyone personally. That's why I didn't put the name of the person who tweeted this. And if you're on My Hero Twitter, you know who it was. But if you're not and you're looking at this after the fact, I don't want to drag any negative attention that way. I'm just using this as a segue to talk about something that's symbolic of a much bigger issue in the My Hero fandom and even in the anime sphere as a whole. Now, for those uninformed of what's going on here, let me break it down for you. There's a really popular headcanon going around the My Hero fanbase that if Mina weren't pink, she would be black. And honestly, no harm, no foul there. If that's what you want to believe based on the way she acts or behaves or what you can relate to personally, that's completely fine. Some also say if you go back to the manga, she could be that skin tone because she's colored the same as some of the other tans or black characters like Mirko or Rocklock in the manga. And yeah, I mean, you could use that as an example, but I don't know, in all of the official stuff, she's pink. So I see the logic, but at the same time, I don't. Now, you might be thinking, no harm, no foul. We're going based off manga colorings or just our own personal opinions and thoughts. Yeah. The issue comes in when you look at why people ascribe to that. And a lot of people say it's because she acts black, so therefore she must be that way. And I just want to break that down for a second. Like, that's kind of weird because your stereotype. First of all, you're stereotyping, which is not great, but it's also super disingenuous, and like how you act does not determine your race or vice versa. You know what I mean? How you act is usually directly a product of the environment that you were raised in. I'm biracial, but I don't necessarily act like it because that's just not the environment I was raised in. And I've had people comment on that before of like, well, you don't act this way, but you're this skin color. And I'm like, yeah, it's just not the environment I was raised in. Shocker, I know, that's really crazy. Saying Mina is black just because she's perky, athletic, and can break dance are really weird reasons to come to that conclusion of this headcanon. Like, again, I see the thought and I understand the idea behind it, but it's not great. Like, that's just, no, just don't do that. Now, despite what the title and thumbnail says, there's actually really no issue with having headcanons. The problem with that comes in, though, when you gaslight yourself into believing that your headcanon is factually canon. And honestly, just based off that one tweet, there were a lot of other tweets where people were upset that Mina wasn't black and that their headcanon was not factual. And I think that's a really weird reason to get upset. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with having a headcanon. I have plenty of headcanons for My Hero, and are all of them true? No, but I'm also not gonna let that hurt or ruin my enjoyment of the series. A lot of people were disappointed and upset when Mina got whitewashed, despite the fact that, one, she was never canonically anything other than pink up until this very moment, and two, doesn't make any sense in the greater context of the series, because as far as we've been told in the series, now that it's concluded, I won't spoil anything past the anime, but as far as we've been told, Mina is a native Japanese person who was born and raised in Japan. So it makes perfect sense that if her quirk had not mutated her body, she would look exactly the same as all of her other Japanese classmates. This is but one of many such cases where anime fans are very upset that a Japanese character is Japanese. And what's really interesting is, as far as I've seen, this is purely a Western issue. This is not something that they have an issue with in Japan or anywhere in the East. It's a Western issue, and I've talked about this in a different video, I'll put it up here somewhere, of how in the West we've become entrapped in this idea that everything has to be about race, gender, sexuality, ideology, all these things, and you lose the plot and you lose the focus on what a story is actually about, and it's telling a story, being entertaining, and getting the ideas of this character across. And Mina is but yet another character who has been lost in this shuffle. Because when you see tweets like this, it's no longer about her. And when this episode comes out, I'm recording it before the episode comes out, but assuming this doesn't just become a big nothing burger, that episode is going to lose the plot of what it's about. This is a big moment for her and her character. And if you make it all about, well, oh, she doesn't look like this because that's what I headcanoned she looked like, well, then it's not about her anymore. It's about what you wanted it to be. And that's not what Horikoshi was trying to get across in the story. It's character development and where her character's been going the entire series. So maybe we should just think about that instead of being entrapped in this ideology that, well, everything has to be about race and there has to be this kind of representation, da-da-da-da-da. And I don't want to repeat myself because, like I said, I've already said it in a video. Representation is great. We should have more representation, but you have to do it in a genuine, honest way that doesn't impede the story. You know what I mean? Like, you can't sacrifice the story just for the sake of representation. That clearly is not working very well if you look at any of the American box office recently. These are also the people who have such a rabid, attitude in the fan base that turn people off from anime in general as a whole, or even My Hero, because they're like, well, I don't want to watch My Hero. I've interacted with multiple people who have said they have not watched My Hero because they don't want to interact with the fan base. And this is something that they're talking about, is this rabid fan base who will attack Horikoshi and attack the series and be so disappointed and downvoted and downrated just because their headcanon was not reality, because they've gaslit themselves into this delusional sphere where their headcanon is the reality of the series. These rabid fans, mind you, who really only read or watch the series for the sake of their own headcanons. And honestly, if that's all you get out of it, I don't know what to tell you. That's not why you should watch a series. And like I said, I've said multiple times now, there's nothing wrong with having a headcanon. I think that's great that you can kind of interpret in your own way, but the problem becomes when you try to push and force that on other people and then get mad at the series for not doing that. If you want a really, really good example of rabid, delusional fans who live for their own headcanons, look no further than the Bakudeku fan base. These people who have legitimately misread and misinterpreted the story on so many different accounts just to bend over backwards to say that these two characters should be together. It doesn't matter what the context of the story is. It doesn't matter what Horikoshi is trying to say. It doesn't matter about the development of either of these characters, because at the end of the day, for these people, it's just about them being together. Now, obviously, I don't agree with that lifestyle, and I can put that aside because even outside of my own personal feelings about that, Bakudeku does not work in the context of the story if you actually read it and actually look into the tropes and the culture and how Japan takes all of these different tropes. It's a very, Goku and Vegeta type relationship where it's a rivalry, and with Bakugo and Deku, it's more of a brotherly rivalry than anything else. And I just don't understand how people can misinterpret it that bad and be that delusional, you know what I mean? And honestly, there's a long, long rabbit trail that I could go down with ships and delusional headcanons, but for my own mental sanity, I'm not going there. I'm gonna go back to the topic of the video, and listen, there's nothing wrong with wanting to headcanon Mina as black. If that's how you feel represented or you think the series should have gone, that's fine. Good for you. But just don't gaslight yourself into believing that it's canon, and then don't get mad at Horikoshi when it's not canon. Don't let it ruin your enjoyment of the series if it doesn't become canon. Headcanons are great. It's fun to get online and discuss with people and be like, well, this is what I took away, or this is what I took away. That's great. Just don't hate the series when your fictional headcanon doesn't become reality. There's a really great meme that kind of summarizes this whole thing that I found, and it's Horikoshi is not responsible for your headcanons, and that kind of puts a nice little bow on everything as we head into the end of the video. And honestly, that's just all my thoughts that I have to share, because this should have been a non-issue to begin with. Like, it shouldn't have ever been a controversy in any way, shape, or form. But drop a comment and let me know. Do you think headcanons are ruining My Hero, or is it just completely fine and harmless? I love interacting with you guys and continuing the conversation down in the comments. Also, let me know what you think of this style of video. I want to do more of these like unscripted, just let's have a discussion, ranty type videos. So if you like it, let me know. And one way you can do that is by leaving a like and subscribing, because then I'll know, hey, people like this kind of content. For now though, you can check out one of the 2 videos on screen, one being my review of Windbreaker and how I think it gives fighting a purpose, and the other one being whatever the YouTube algorithm thinks you might like.